G'day, comrades. The debate about basic income is moving so quickly that I feel I have to talk to you urgently about it. There are a number of upcoming seminars, one run by ACOS, the Australian Council of Social Services, and we've had the Fabians event earlier this month, and a lot of people are talking about it. Obviously, the New Zealand Labor Party and the UK Labor Party are investigating it. The important thing for people in the labour movement and people who vote Labor and supporters of the labour movement need to understand is that a basic income is not a necessity because it is a welfare reform. It is a necessity because it is a counter-deflationary measure. And every week, every day, there is more data, more articles, more explanations of why we are in a deflationary situation around the world, and that is because of the economic rents which are being extracted, which prevent labour or industrial capital having any growth potential. And that means that there's not enough demand in the economy, and that creates a deflationary spiral. Deflation is, of course, incredibly dangerous because it means high long-term structural unemployment. And the reason why a basic income is so important and such a magnificent opportunity is because we've actually been in a deflationary situation effectively for about 30 years. Very slow deflation of our economies by deliberate decision by the neoliberal ascendancy in the late 70s and early 80s to deflate our economy, caused recessions, which we had to have at those times, so that as a political project, so that working class institutions, both political and industrial, had less power. And they've been incredibly effective, and in fact they've been too effective, and now they don't know what to do. So our Reserve Bank governor here in Australia and all the Reserve Bank governors, central bankers around the world, are stuck. They can't reinflate the economy through monetary policy. Their monetary policy, of course, has caused this long-term deflation. In Australia, the manifestation is slightly less growth than we would have otherwise had, except for two huge recessions in 1983 and 1991. And of course, the political and industrial result is that we've had high unemployment, high underemployment for a very long time, which is anathema to anybody who's trying to organise a union. So, because of course you can just say, well, if you don't want the job, there's plenty more people who want it. So it's only through in Australia, our luck that we've had so much legacy power, so much power built up institutionally, that unions have done as well as they have. In other countries, of course, they've been, depending on where it is, they've either held up quite well, but they still have this same problem. So a reflationary measure like a basic income gives unions, the labour movement, labour, the small L as a factor in the economy, people, a chance to start negotiating again with capital in the political sphere and in the industrial sphere. And that's why a universal basic income has to be paid for by taxing economic rents. You can't do it like our current welfare system involves taxing one part of labour and sending the money to another part of labour. So every person who works effectively pays for someone who doesn't. That's not going to work anymore. If everyone's going to get an equal share of a basic income, the money needs to come from somewhere else. And of course, if the purpose of a basic income is to be counter-deflationary, then we need to go to the place which is causing the deflation. And that is, of course, financialisation, economic rents, super profits and things like that, all the same thing, really. So a universal basic income paid for out of the Commonwealth of the country, for example, by our mineral resources, like our gas resources. That meme going around this week, we've only got $800 million from the sale of our gas, whereas Qatar's got $26 billion, that kind of thing, just like the Alaska Permanent Fund. Of course, a super profits tax on our banks, who earn basically double what they should in profits. Super profits tax on BHP or any other company which is making obscene super profits, economic rents, Coles, Woolies, other people like that. But then also land So land is the main source of economic rent. It is people gain an economic benefit simply through their prior control, their political control of the land without any effort from themselves. So we should take a portion of that economic rent and return it to the general population through a basic income, through a pre-dividend. And of course, what happens then is that you reinflate the economy, and you end up with being able, with our current budget, of being able to pay for free education, or at least HECS, some sort of decent education system which isn't constrained by worries of breaking the budget, a health system which can pay for, which is high quality, which doesn't have the health minister saying, well, we're sorry, we just don't have the money, infrastructure, environmental services, all the other things that we want to do. And that is why basic income is a necessity. It's not a welfare reform. It's a macroeconomic response to neoliberalism. And it gives Labor a shot at fighting back against neoliberalism. It's a absolute necessity rather than a desirable microeconomic reform. We've been fighting skirmishes on the ground for 30 years against privatisations, against industrial campaigns, against political campaigns to take away the rights and the benefits of ordinary people, of working class, of labour. And all that time, the right, conservatives have had on their side macroeconomic policy, which means that they generally win. We've been fighting with one hand, tied behind our back by deflation, by high structural unemployment. Basic income gives us a chance to fight that fight without our hands tied behind our back. A la the 1960s and 70s. So basic income gives working class, labour, the labour movement, Labour Party around the world, democratic socialist parties, social democratic parties around the world, a shot, which they haven't had effectively for the past 30 years, of increasing the gains and defending the gains that they've already made to increase the living standards of real people, of labour. So that is why it's a necessity. That's why I should get behind it. That's why it needs to be investigated by the labour movement, how we get to that position. I think that we should immediately begin planning for something like the Alaska Permanent Fund, where funds from our gas, oil, mineral resource revenues are put into a fund and then distributed equally to everybody. That might only be $100 a month, but it's the start. It's an institutional beginning for a basic income guarantee. And then at some point in the future, if we want to change the way that we do welfare, then that's great, because we probably should anyway. But it's not a welfare reform. It's a macroeconomic necessity. Please tell your friends, share it around your networks, tell your branch, and start reading up on it. You can see on my blog, I've got all the links there about why this is a necessity. You can just watch the Yanis Varoufakis video on why basic income is a necessity. Stop watching my video, watch his. He says it far more eloquently. But you can also see other links and other ways in which this is being discussed. Virtuous Rent, a rudder for our economy, is a wonderful article. Everyone should read that. And why land value tax and basic income are linked is another really good article. So if you watch the Varoufakis video, read those two articles, you'll be ahead of most people debating this policy issue around the world. You'll understand it better than about 99% of people who currently put themselves up as experts and panelists to talk about this. So please do so. If you've got any comments, if you want to ask me any questions, you know what to do. Cheers, bye.